Hi, everyone, and welcome to Trading for Life Redeemed. I'm your host, Dan, and as always, I am with my dad, David Jackson, to talk about all things in the Bible. And today we are looking at Joshua. We're continuing our progress through Joshua, and I think, Dad, we said we're looking at chapters 5 and 6 today.
That's right.
That's right. Excellent. And this is episode 39. So I hope you enjoy. Today, Dad, we start off with everyone getting circumcised just before they've just crossed over the Jordan, but everyone needs to be circumcised. Why do they need to be circumcised? Didn't God tell them at Mount Sinai to circumcise their children? Or Abraham, even, not Mount Sinai, Abraham. They were told to circumcise their children on the 8th day, and here we are circumcising everyone because it hasn't been done for a whole generation.
It says a lot, doesn't it? Here we are 40 years after we get out of Egypt, and there's a whole generation hasn't been circumcised because their parents did not commit to Yahweh. After all that he did to get them out of Egypt and the Passover and all of the miracles and everything else, it's water off a duck's back. And so I really feel sorry for these blokes. You've got an army of men who are between the ages of 20 and 50. And we've just seen Yahweh part the Jordan River and cross. And here we are in our first base camp in the Promised Land. And the first thing you get told as part of the routine orders for the day is drop your dacks, we're about to take a slice off. Tactically, this is ridiculous. If you remember Shechem, when the king of Shechem's son, spoilt little brat that he was, took Dinah and raped her and used that as a bargaining chip, her brothers went in, negotiated this real con artist deal with all the men of Shechem. Yeah, you can marry our sister as long as we get to circumcise every man in town. So they circumcised every man in town.
They can come through and slaughter you.
Yeah, and then waited 3 days till the pain really cut in. So these guys are sitting on soft cushions going, oh, and in comes these fellas and kills them all. And so the first thing you do when you're about to invade a foreign country, you cross their border and then you circumcise all your troops. And you've got to know, I mean, Jericho's 5 clicks down the road. They'd have been standing, you got these little guys out there, they didn't have binoculars, but they could see, and they're looking across the gully, hiding behind whatever they hid behind, going, what on earth are they doing? As these fellas stagger out of the tent, with their hands on their crotch going, oh. But it's your relationship with God that comes first, not whether you're physically fit enough to go to battle, because God's going to do the fighting. So, and God's not going to fight for you if you haven't committed.
Yeah.
So first, I would have done it the other side of the river, but
Yeah, that's right. That's not the same kind of faith, Dad. You've got to be, vulnerable when you do it.
Oh, and it sends a message to how confident is an army that does this 5 clicks from their military objective? In plain sight of all these, of the people of Jericho. It's just, God's making a statement here. And it's a lovely statement. It says, first get your relationship with the Lord right, and he'll take care of everything else. I love that.
So they then are told to go and attack Jericho. There's a bit of a meeting between God and Joshua to talk about the tactics about this attack. And the attack is basically just kind of sit back and watch, do some laps of the city, which probably isn't that big, really. When I went there, I'm like, you can do laps of that in a day quite happily.
Yeah, I just love the juxtaposition here that you've got. You've got a bunch of guys who are sitting around feeling sorry for themselves, having had the snip, and I can't resist the military humour. I mean, you name your camp Hill of Foreskins. And then you name the place where everybody's camped, Gilgal. God said he was rolling their foreskin away, and they named the place Roly Poly. This is military humour, you know. And it's the same you get with surgical humour, you know. You go into surgery, there's no dignity in having surgery, so you make jokes about it. So that's what's happening. They're sort of sitting around laughing their embarrassment away, and Joshua goes out to check the perimeter and bumps into Yahweh and has his little Moses moment. Take your shoes off, this is holy ground. But I love the language there. You're a sentry, you're going out checking your perimeter. Who goes there, friend or foe? And God turns around and says, no, mate, I'm the one asking the questions. It's not about whether I'm on your side, it's whether you're on mine. I'm the captain of Yahweh's army. I'm in charge of this battle. You know, the question is, are you loyal to me? So God's made his point. And then it's off to, it's interesting. They go straight into doing Passover. I mean, you can't do Passover if you haven't been circumcised. And they cross the river on the day you're supposed to select your sheep. And then they circumcise them. And by the time Passover night comes around 4 days later, Joshua's bumped into the Lord and had his little conversation like Moses. And we've had our feast, we're remembering. And now we're ready to get up in the morning for 7 days, a feast of unleavened bread. And for each morning of the feast of unleavened bread, we're going to go for a walk around Jericho with our little flags.
Well, there's a connection I didn't make. There was a feast of unleavened bread for 7 days with the 7 walks.
Yeah, and there's a pattern there because at the end of the 7, so you've got 7 days of creation, 7 days is your climax, your day of rest, and then the next day is a new beginning, a new week. So the 8th day is your new creation day. So 8th day, Jesus rises from the dead. 8th day, Pentecost happens. On this day, by day 8, Jericho's gone. And it's all over. So I can't help thinking of, I'm a Monty Python fan, I confess. But if you've ever seen Life of Brian, and they come to the castle, and the guys at the top of the castle are going, "Go away, you silly British pig dogs," or whatever they call them. And they're mocking
Holy Grail, Dad.
Yeah, is it the Holy Grail? That's it. I get them mixed
up. They're coconut horses.
Yeah. The coconut horses. Yeah. Go away, you silly English, whatever.
Niggets. Yeah.
Niggets. Yeah. But you can just imagine the people of Jericho standing on the battlements like that, watching this army that they're waiting for the attack, walking around waving flags at them and saying, "Hi, fellas, we're coming." At the end of 6 days, they'd be yelling abuse at them and calling them names. And day 7, they do it for 7 times. It's a 2-kilometre walk around Jericho. It would take all day. And at the end of the day,
7 times.
7 times. Yeah, 14. It's a 14K all up, 7th day hike. And then everybody does a left turn, face the middle, blow your trumpets, down come the walls, and you go in and finish them off. The guys on the wall would have been sitting up there having a beer, looking at all this going, I don't know. And the whole thing comes crashing down. You're sort of beginning to feel safe and then gone. You're gone. Judgment is sudden.
Yeah, although it's judgment for everyone except for Rahab, who obviously had been promised to be safe and secure on the life of the spies. And then she survives with her whole family in her little room, and they all go in and grab her.
And I sort of think about her family. Okay, so you've got, if Rahab's a prostitute, chances are she's at least in her late teens, at the most her early 20s. And it's her house. So she's inviting the rest of the family to come to her place, and she's saying, if you want to live, you've got to be in my house. And, you look out the window of her house and there's the Israeli army doing laps. And so she's spending that week rounding everybody up, getting them in the house. And she's got the red cord out the window. And you're trying to explain to the family why we're in the house, and they're all scared. And then when the walls come down, her house is in the wall. And you go, God keeps his promises. You know, all the rest of the wall goes down except my little piece of it.
Yeah, and it's almost like a mini Passover, because she's got, you know, a red scarf, and you're safe in one house, and you know.
Yeah, and the red is, I mean, if you've got any sensitivity in the Bible for symbolism, you've got the lamb's blood over the door at Passover. They did that last week, you know, and now this week, they didn't put it over the door. They didn't have doors. Intense. But here we are with her with the red out the window going, you know, when God's judgment falls, I'm under the blood. You know, somebody died for me. That's what the red is symbolizing. So even though she doesn't have a lot of information, she really is putting a faith in a promise, and that the end of that promise is Jesus. That's an amazing, and all of her family gathered in there going, okay, whatever you say, love, if this is a safe place, you've done the deal with, you know, Yahweh, we're here. And that's a marvelous, marvelous picture that says, you know, when God's judgment falls, there's one safe place and everything else is going down. And my safe place is Jesus.
Well, that brings us to the end of this episode of Training for Life Redeemed. If you would, well, that brings us to the end of Training for Life Redeemed. If you enjoyed this episode, we would love it if you would leave us a review, and also make sure that you subscribe so that you can come back and visit us next time when we cover the next section, as they start to look into attacking AI and a few other cities around the place. If you want to grab the show notes, watch the video, etc., leave us a comment on the website. You can head over to trainingforliferedeemed.com/39 and you can find everything there. Otherwise, I hope to see you next week.